Hello, my name's Danny, and I wanted to express a bit of my story. So, over the past couple of years, I've been looking at different paths which are a little bit away from the software industry, and I found it to be a very, very interesting path because essentially you can have many, many different things, and a few of them light you up here and there. And I thought this was interesting. Like I looked up entrepreneurship, I looked at other different paths, like I'm an L2, L3 PT, I've got NLP under my belt, I've got life coaching coming very, very soon. And I thought to myself, like, what's the sort of things that, you know, help me? And one of the things that I realized was that there's a bit of a way of thinking between who you are as a person and what you do for your job. And it's led me to one very interesting question, which is, when people say, you need to go out and get a job, I ask them, what is a job? Because there's a distinction between a job that you love and a job that you absolutely despise. And this is what I call the mask. The mask itself is essentially saying, right, okay, if I was to be made redundant tomorrow, or I had to leave this job for whatever reason tomorrow, who would the person be underneath all of that stuff? If I lost it tomorrow, who would I be? And this was something that hit me in Stanmore Park. I was in Stanmore Park, and I just felt really, really bad because the identity that I had associated with myself was that of a DevOps engineer, making significant money. But what I realized after it was actually this isn't really where I want to be, right? Why is that? Because I realized that, well, despite me actually liking what I did, right, I had no idea who I was doing it for. What was the result of me doing that particular work? What would actually light me up as a person if I stepped away? Right? No idea. No idea. So I decided to pursue different paths. And then I came to the conclusion that actually, I think one of the things that makes a lot of sense to me is actually to help people. And ensure that, well, the knowledge which I have inside of me is impacted to a different person to help them, and not only myself, but their lives too. Right? So I thought about it, and I thought, well, what's the best way I could serve different people? And I thought, well, why don't I give them my experience? I say, right, okay, I've been in the software game, right? I've had these different credentials that I talked about, right? NLP, life coaching, level 3 PT, right? I even have the Scrum Master one now as well, right? And that's helped me to understand, well, what does it mean to be an employee in your own, an employee, never mind employee in your own business, you're always an employee in your own business, but an employee, and that of which is a business owner. In fact, I took a course, right, for my own business by a man called Richard Bowling, who helps software engineers, just like you who's watching this, create their own businesses, right? And now everybody's probably sitting there saying, oh, all this sort of stuff. And I thought about it, and I said to myself, would it make more sense for me to have my own thing, right, within 10 to 20 years' time? Or would it make more sense for me to be under somebody else? And it's still a very difficult question for me today. But I came to the conclusion that actually, if I worked a little bit harder, and just said, right, okay, is my willingness to help people stronger than, anything else? And if it is, I should commit to doing that, right? I said, well, okay, let me see what I can do that way. Because if in 10 years' time, I could be in a position whereby I wouldn't need to work for anybody ever again. And that is compelling. I think everyone should have that kind of vision. Everyone should be in a position which says, well, hang on a minute. If I go down this particular path, would I even need this particular job? Would I even need, and in the program, it's called that compelling vision, right? If you do Scrum, you go either with that service or the product vision, right? Depending on what it is that you're trying to portray to your customers, right? Be it the customers who are outside, internal of the company, all that sort of thing. And I thought to myself, well, okay, I like helping people. I have some coaching ability, right? So I'm going into life coaching as well, so I know a little bit about coaching. And I thought to myself, well, the best people that I can serve are actually engineers. And I thought to myself, okay, well, we've got software, we've got hardware. Well, I've been in software, I've been in DevOps, right? I've got 6 years to 7 years under my belt. You can check this underneath my LinkedIn profile. And then I thought to myself, okay, well, I've studied about mental and physical health, right? The NLP, life coaching coming in very, very soon. Another a month out on that one, about a month to 3 weeks, but that one will be with me soon as well. It's ICF certified. So I thought, okay, well, I know those two bits. Scrum Master, right? So if you're working for somebody in software engineering, or if you're a DevOps, hardware engineer, I can help you guys as well, because I know the other part, right, from the engineering. So I know the business part as well, right? And that's how my knowledge comes into what I'm doing now, which is called the Worldwide Mental Health Project, where I'll be helping different engineers, right, understand what it means to do something else, which is outside of engineering, right, if they want to, or they can stick in with engineering and explore things like mental health and physical health, yeah, and how that can affect and boost productivity. Because right now I've not seen anybody who specifically caters towards software engineering segment. And that's what the Worldwide Mental Health Project is as a component to do, right? It's designed to help you with that. There's a particular part on that website which deals with software engineering. So if that sounds really good to you, if that sounds like something which you'd be interested in, right? Drop a message below and we'll type down mental health, right? Because I think from time to time we've got to be honest with ourselves, and we've got to be understanding, what is it that we want to do? Where do we want to go? What do we want to achieve? Because with all due respect, sitting at a computer is awesome, right? It's awesome because you write your code in, maybe you do some Kubernetes, you do some Terraform, you do perhaps you do some Jira work, perhaps you do AWS. It's all very well and good. But then what happens when you lose it? What happens when there's nobody around to give you that consolidation? What happens when you're stressed out? What happens when you're burned out? What do you do then? Because you go for a holiday for 2 weeks, you come back, and it's the same thing. So how do we build lasting change in that domain? And that's the sort of thing and the sort of journey that I went on, right? I went on that journey. I got to a point where I was, doing different activities. I was doing different things. Why? Because mentally, it just took a load off my mind, right? This cognitive load that we keep forcing ourselves into in the pursuit of intellectualism. And I was told this myself by a previous boss, perfectionism. And that's one of the things that I will be looking at in the Worldwide Mental Health Project, is how do we balance perfectionism with what is actually out there. And it's a very difficult thing to do. It's not easy. I'm experiencing it myself, right? This is why this video is 9 minutes long right now, right? So yeah, if that is something that resonates with you, then leave that comment below, mental health, and I'll get back to you with some of the things that we can do, right? We can arrange a session, see what the goals are, see what goals are useful to you, see how I can help you with them, and see what we can do to get you to that place that you want to be at. All right? Okay, I'll catch you in the next one.